Welcome to the We Talk Health Podcast, the official podcast for West Tennessee Healthcare. Please be advised that this podcast is not intended to replace any medical advice. Always follow your medical professional's advice and direction. Nothing said in this podcast is intended to supersede or supplement the direction of your medical caretakers. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at wetalkhealthpodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our best to answer any questions you may have.
Welcome to another episode of We Talk Health. My name is Will Kwasigroh, and joining me in the studio again is Hailey Archer. She is a MS, RD, and LDN, and the clinical dietitian at Kirkland Cancer Center. Hailey, what's up? How are you?
Hello, how are you doing, Will?
I'm good. Good to see you. So today we're going to be talking about the August cooking recipe, which if you've been following this podcast for a while, you've noticed that this year we've been posting one recipe a month, highlighting different recipes that are good for that month's national awareness, whatever that month might be. August is National Breastfeeding Month, so Hailey has created a menu of really good Mexican-style foods that are good for breastfeeding mothers and the child. Hailey, let's talk about the recipe and why you chose this one.
Sure. So rather than just choosing one recipe this time, I tried to kind of come up with three different ones that all kind of would come together well and make a nice meal. So we did some Cuban black beans and then some Spanish whole grain rice and then also a homemade guacamole, just because I really like guacamole, and this was a good excuse to get to make something work-related.
Absolutely, for sure.
But also just specific ingredients within those items are certainly beneficial for a mother that's breastfeeding and also for a child. So kind of to start, the bean recipe, predominantly with the beans, we're looking at beans are a great source of fiber, a great source of protein, as well as antioxidants. The guacamole had lots of different things in there. Not only is it pretty to look at, but it's also, avocados specifically are a good source of healthy fat, fiber. They give you a lot of your different B vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin K. And then also it includes some of your citrus things with the lime, the tomatoes, and peppers, which are also going to be high in vitamin C as well.
Cool.
So with the Spanish rice, the biggest thing there is that I chose a whole grain rice. Again, whole grains are going to be high in fiber, and in some whole grains as well, they're going to be high in those B vitamins as well. And then to kind of accompany that with the guacamole, obviously people are going to want to eat that with chips. So there is a new product. They're actually sweet potato tortilla chips. I'm not sure if you've had them. I don't think Will had until we made it, and they're excellent.
Yes, I don't know why I always don't expect much when I see new foods. I'm like, oh, that's not going to be great, but it was fantastic. I would rather buy those than regular tortilla chips now.
Yeah, it's all we buy at our house now. But one, sweet potatoes are going to be good, and they're high in vitamin A. They're also, the specific brand that we used, they're low in saturated fat and also low in sodium. It's the Simple Truth organic sweet potato tortilla chips.
Okay. Do you know if those are like deep fried or if they're air fried, or you might not know?
Yeah. I'm not sure off the top of my head, to be honest.
Well, if they're organic, they're probably quote unquote healthier for you. The texture felt like they were fried. They might not have been. They might have been air fried, but they were delicious.
Yeah, they have a really good texture to them. And it's not even so much about the organic so much as just the sweet potato base.
Right.
So I would recommend them, definitely. And again, then you're getting that vitamin A from the sweet potatoes. So it's kind of just another way to get some of those micronutrients within this meal.
Absolutely.
The beans, again, were serving as a big source of the protein. So it was a full, composed meal. You had your vegetables. You weren't really getting much dairy, obviously. And then your fruits were lacking a little bit in terms of citrus. They had a little bit of citrus. But in general, it was a pretty good, well-composed meal, and it kind of played nicely together.
Yeah, it was very good. So let's talk about the breastfeeding aspect of it. You said you chose the recipes with the ingredients that you did to kind of promote healthy breastfeeding for mother and for baby. So kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's well documented in research that breast milk is good for infants. You obviously want to fuel the mother to appropriately fuel a child.
Right.
But breast milk has lots of wonderful things that it can do for a child. One thing is that one of the biggest things is that it helps with the immune system. So breast milk has antibodies, and then it's also made up of protein, fat, sugars, and even some white blood cells, which is obviously going to help fight infection. It just helps to build a really strong immune system.
Yeah.
It also helps with just creating a good human microbiome. Babies we know that are breastfed are less likely to develop asthma and allergies. They're less likely to become obese later in life, and it also reduces their risk of SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome. So that's kind of one thing, or not really one thing, a few things that it really does for the child. From a mother's perspective, a mother that has breastfed has a less likely, or a reduced chance, I should say, of developing ovarian or breast cancer. It can actually help shrink your uterus back to its pre-pregnancy size.
Really?
Yeah, which is really, and I did not know that until I was breastfeeding myself with my child. And then also it just helps release hormones, your prolactin and your oxytocin, which those kind of help bond with baby. A lot of those happen, following labor and things as well. Mm-hmm. So lots of health benefits for both mother and child.
Yeah.
But obviously it's important to note, breastfeeding does not necessarily come easy to all women and mothers. So I think it's important to kind of recognize that is best as usually one of the things you kind of see.
Sure.
There's plenty of mothers that choose to formula feed or formula and breastfeed, and all of those are fine. The important thing is that your baby's getting the nutrition that it needs.
Right.
But certainly, if you have the opportunity and are able to, nursing your child is definitely a beneficial thing for both you and the baby.
Yeah. So how long should women nurse their child?
The World Health Organization typically recommends about 6 months.
Okay.
I think in an ideal world, they're saying exclusively, but we know that that's not necessarily the case for everybody. But at least 6 months is kind of the goal for most people.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, is there a specific, maybe not super specific, but is there a certain diet that is recommended for breastfeeding mothers?
It's not that it's specific to breastfeeding mothers, but it's kind of an amped up, just good, healthful diet. It's not that there's anything specific that you've got to go out of your way to just really hone in on.
Right.
But you want to ultimately have a varied diet focusing on nutrient dense foods. You kind of want to get a lot of bang for your buck when you do eat.
Of course.
Most people find that it's better to do 3 to 5 small meals and snacks, kind of spreading it out just to make sure you're getting all the calories that you need. Obviously, your calorie, your protein, your fluid needs, all of those are going to go up when you're nursing. Mm-hmm. So for most women, we find that calorie consumption, they're recommending anywhere between 400 to 700, kind of depending on where you're reading, what you're looking at. Different organizations, CDC might vary from another organization.
Sure.
But in general, you're going to find about 400 to 700 additional calories per day. In terms of your protein, you're looking at about 20 to 25 grams of additional protein throughout the day. In terms of caffeine, alcohol consumption, moderate consumption we know is okay, but certainly nothing excessive.
Right.
Certainly with alcohol and also with, caffeine as well. So that's looking at your sodas, your teas, your coffee, all of that.
Okay.
If you're wanting to get into some more specifics,
sure.
Definitely choosing high fiber foods is going to be recommended. Certain fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains. We know those, a lot of those have lots of high fiber to them. And again, some of those kind of played in with the recipes that I kind of chose to get plenty of fiber there as well. So in addition to the, getting plenty of calories and protein, I kind of mentioned it previously, but you definitely want to make sure you're getting plenty of fluids. That's going to help with your milk production, and also just your general health too. We certainly don't need an already sleep deprived person, with
Sure.
a newborn to also end up dehydrated. So you really want to focus in on getting plenty of fluid. Obviously water is a good choice. Some people choose, whether it's Gatorade, Powerade, things with electrolytes. But just really making sure you stay good and hydrated is a really important thing.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Hailey, this recipe was really good. Watching you make it looked like, it looked like you were having a good time while you were making it.
Always have fun with you.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So, yeah, listeners, if you're listening and you want to check out the recipe, there will be a link in the description below. And if you're looking at the podcast image, you can see everything that she's cooked, and I think it looks great. Hopefully you think it looks great as well. Hailey, it was great to see you again. This was a lot of fun, and thanks for doing it.
Thanks, Will.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of We Talk Health.